I've been smeared as oh my God, Nick is advocating for a Red Brown Alliance because on the Jones Strike Summit and for the March for Medicare for All, I'm like, I don't care if you're conservative. I want to form a coalition with you on this issue. And we had a UN organizer, which once again they lied, which we get not one apology. David Doe lied about it. Hassan lied about it. David, what's his name? Ian Higgins, he lied about it. They were like, oh, they got no UN organizers. They lied about the event. Not one apology yet. So how do these white privileged people get away with smearing a group of working class black people? How do they get away with it in the woke crowd? I will never understand. But anyway, I digress. Their point, because I said I don't want to talk to anyone who supports the General Strike Summit. I want to march for anyone who supports Medicare for All. They were like, you can't do that. You advocate for red brown lines. You gotta draw a line in the sand. If they are a Trumper, if they're a conservative, racist, and I had the most insane, stupid shit said to me by people who are part of the Bernie wing, right? And they smeared me as red brown lion because I refused. Because I'm like, if I'm right, I'm right. And you guys are clowns that are leading us off a cliff. And they purposely trying to get us to hate our neighbors. I'm not gonna do it. I'm in a red state, surrounded by conservatives and rednecks. And then the conservatives and rednecks are not surrounded by. We got shit libs like Pete Buttigieg fans. We got black neoliberals who don't like. There's a ton of people who are deplorable as far as I know in terms of political ideas. But if I was to have your litmus test, I wouldn't work with anyone. So that's stupid. So this is my theory. I'm gonna pass it right back to you, Caleb. They purposely give us bad advice.
Oh yeah.
Why are they telling working class people to divide in camps? Why are they telling us to vote for Democrats? These people are telling us bad advice on purpose. But Caleb, go ahead.
Sure. Well, one thing I'm tired of is sex reductionism. They're always talking about class reductionism. Well, I'm tired of sex reductionism. I tweeted out and I just said what I think is a very defensible statement, which is if you're against abortion or you're against gay marriage, I might disagree with you. And I do. I am for abortion rights for women and I'm for gay marriage. But if you're against those things, you are still my comrade and we can work together around class struggle. And I said that and immediately all these people were sending me hateful message. How dare you be willing to work with people who are against gay marriage? How dare you be able to work with people who are against abortion? Well, I'm sorry, 10 years ago, before any of these people were politically active, I was in Ohio, I think it was 12 or 13 years ago, and we were protesting at the Ohio death row against the death penalty. And you know who was there with us? Catholic priests and nuns, because the Catholic Church is against the death penalty. I guess I shouldn't have protested with them because the Catholic Church is against abortion, against gay marriage, right? When I went to Iran, I went to a very amazing conference in Iran, all dedicated to the Black freedom struggle in the United States. And you know who was there? Leaders of the Nation of Islam, the staff of Minister Louis Farrakhan. And they are amazing people. And I marched with them against the bombing of Libya. And when Barack Obama was bombing Libya and the most prosperous country in Africa was bombed and destroyed by NATO, I didn't see any of these fake leftists in the streets. They didn't do anything about it. But Minister Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam, they were in the streets and they had the millions march in Harlem. So, okay, they oppose abortion, they oppose gay marriage, but they're still my comrades and they're anti-imperialists. So this idea that we should make sexual issues the litmus test, I really don't understand it. I really, really don't get it. I mean, on those grounds, I guess you have to support Israel because Israel is more pro-LGBT than most Arab countries are. So I guess we have to support Israel in attacking the Palestinians because sexual issues is all that matters. I'm for abortion rights. I'm for gay marriage. I have many trans activists that I work with, and I marched against the NYPD and their policy of profiling trans people in New York City. And I was at those demonstrations, the Trans Day of Action, et cetera. But at the same time, I'm not going to draw the line, and that there's something very, very privileged and middle class about making sexual freedom the issue, because a lot of working class people of various backgrounds are socially conservative. Religion was a very big part of my upbringing. In my small town, the church and the Bible, that was a really big, important part of how we grew up. And, and that's the same for a lot of Americans of very, very various backgrounds. And the thing is, that's a very working class thing. Working class people tend to be more religious. Working class people tend to have a little more of a conservative outlook. And these kind of middle class kids who've grown up in a much more, cushy, comfortable lifestyle. Look, I mean, I understand that if you go to some of these schools in like the suburbs of Washington, D.C., some of these elite private schools, you may not even have to call your teacher by their their last name. You might call them by their first name. Can you imagine that, right? Not Mr. or Mrs., but you have to call them by their first name. You may not even have to ask permission to go to the bathroom in some of these elite schools. These kids have grown up without very much authoritarianism. And they look at Donald Trump and they see that he's angry and they see the military stuff and it scares them. And they look at China and they look at Russia and they look at Cuba and Venezuela and they see, oh, these are military and they're wearing uniforms, and it scares them, and they equate the two. And for them, leftism is just kind of about being scared of authority and being afraid of authoritarianism. It's this kind of middle class, teenage rebellion. They don't like authority. Whereas, I grew up in a neighborhood and a town where a lot of people that I went to school with went into the military. There were people at my school who had relatives who were in prison, and that working class life generally is more authoritarian. And there's more of a role of religion and such. And that I'm in this because I want people to have jobs, healthcare, and education. I want to raise living standards. I want to abolish hunger and poverty. I want to end these wars for profit. I want to end the prison industrial complex. I'm not in this to just kind of have a teenage rebellion against authority and get my anger out and tell my mom and dad they can't tell me what to do. I'm in this for real economic, serious political reasons, right? And I think that for a lot of these people, it's really just kind of an aesthetic thing. It's kind of like, they see being a socialist or a communist kind of like, maybe shopping at Hot Topic used to be. And they want to, wear the most badass clothes. They want to wake up in the morning and put on their socialist shoes. And, they want to have a socialist outfit. And it's like this commodified identity they want to take on. Oh, look at me. I'm a socialist or a communist. And it's just kind of a fashion statement, right? It's an aesthetic. Whereas, as I say that, these are real ideas and we need to take them seriously. And if we're going to take them seriously, we need to present them in a different way. Today it's a Saturday. I'm at home. I'm wearing a T-shirt, but often I wear a suit and tie. And I'm not afraid to call myself a patriot of the United States. I obviously don't believe in U.S. imperialism, and I recognize this society was founded on the genocide of Native Americans and the horrors of slavery. But I want my fellow working Americans to know my goal is not to destroy the country. My goal is to have the country be reborn on new values of brotherhood and solidarity. And I would like to use socialist methods to make the United States a better place and a better country for working families. So that means I'm not going out and burning the American flag or saying I want to burn it down, tear it down. I'm instead saying that socialism is about building. It's about construction. It's not about destruction. And I think if we want average Americans to be interested in our movement, we need to change the messaging to appeal to them and not these kind of middle-class kids who are having a tantrum against their parents.
Keller, we cracked me up, man. There's so much fire. There's so much fire there. There's so much to break down. So much to break down, so I'll try my best here.
Sure.
Regarding the litmus test, I find myself to be extremely, not to pat myself on the back here, I find myself to be extremely ideologically and intellectually consistent, especially on this issue. There are a ton of people who are not. So this is my question. Where do you guys get these weird litmus tests? And this is a serious question. If you watch it in the chat, let me know. I'm confused when I see where people draw the line. Like, I'm legitimately confused. And a lot of it I agree on. Like, if I see someone who's like an anti-gay bigot or something, I'm like, that's deplorable, right? I agree with that, right? And I ask this to Democratic voters all the time, especially like Biden voters who got mad at me because how dare you not vote for the Democrat Party? Okay, hear me out, right? Will you vote? And this is what you ask these people: will you vote for a candidate that was openly against gay marriage? And I mean, like, not like he said it one time in an interview. I mean, like they're running on it. Like, I don't believe gay people should be married. I'm against that, and I'm gonna fight against gay marriage. And he ran in the Democratic Party, will you vote for them? Most people in the left that vote for Democrat will say no, right? How much? 90% of people say I would not vote for someone who was anti-gay, right? So, as a Black working class man, why is that your litmus test? But you guys are willing to vote for a fucking war criminal. You guys are willing to vote for someone who has done insane damage to the Black community with the crime bill, the bankruptcy bill. He ran to Trump's right on law enforcement, and he said he's going to fund the police more. So you see the privilege bullshit that pisses me off. Why? And once again, I agree with the litmus. If you have a strong litmus test, apply that, right? But why are you guys saying that like gay people are more important than black people? So like, I draw the line at gay marriage, but if someone's anti-black, I'll vote for him. He's the lesser of two evils. Do you guys see how that frustrates me? So
Yeah.
I know I'm getting a little long here, Caleb, but I'm trying to explain how I'm intellectually consistent. I'll pass it right to you, right?
Oh, sure.
So if I was to do this bullshit where I'm like, all right, if you don't support me on other issues, I'm not forming coalitions. And this is why people get mad at me. Because if I was to do that, I would be impossible to please. There are a lot of people, I like some of you people, and you guys got horrific takes on some things, right? But I am willing to form a coalition with you on healthcare. I'm willing to form a coalition with you on anti-imperialism. So I'm consistent. So if, to me, once again, to me personally, if you voted for Jim Crow Joe after knowing what he did, that is horrific. Like, if you know his record, that's horrific. And I actually have a hard time forgiving that. If I'm going to be real with you, I have a hard time forgiving you motherfuckers who vote for Jim Crow Joe. Did that stop me from marching with you guys for Medicare for All? Did that stop me from talking to many people on the General Strike Summit? Do you guys see how I'm consistent, right? So I'm down with working with people who I disagree with. So this is what drives me crazy. And Kayla, I'm going to get you in here. These people say, I refuse to work with people I disagree with. But Kyle, he will have a conversation with Vosh, who is advocating for economic sanctions and starvations of millions of peoples. Where's the small disagreement here? You guys see how they're intellectually inconsistent? They're cool with fucking neocon psychopaths like Vosh. They vote for Joe Biden, but then they yell at us. They yell at us when we have the audacity of working with people we disagree with. You guys see the intellectual dishonesty that pisses me off? But Kayla, I know I went long there. I want to get your thoughts as well.
Oh, sure. I mean, it's really intellectually inconsistent and dishonest. Why does the cancel culture never apply to Joe Biden? This is a guy who wrote the crime bill, who ran for office on a tough on crime platform. There's video of him in the 80s when he was giving the Democratic rebuttal to the State of the Union, calling for building a big giant wall, decades before Trump ever did. Joe Biden has said so many offensive things over the years, but he's Joe Biden and he's the establishment. So
that's okay. That's okay though.
Right. Meanwhile, the second that you are anti-war, that you're pro-Russia or pro-China, or you're demanding force the vote around AOC, they immediately go, oh, well, you talked to somebody who once was the roommate of somebody, so therefore you're responsible for this. I've seen attacks, right? People, I work for RT, which is a great TV network based in Russia. I'm very proud of the reporting that I do there, but I have all kinds of people attacking me for going on RT, and they'll say, well, there was somebody on RT who said this, and you work at RT, so therefore you're responsible for that, as if I'm like the only person there, right? But no one has ever attacked me for going on CNN. I've been on CNN. In 2013, when Obama was threatening to send cruise missiles to Syria because of lies about chemical weapons, I was invited on CNN, and I went on CNN, and I said that the United States government needs to stop arming terrorists. I went on CNN. No one has ever attacked me for going on CNN. CNN lies all the time to promote war and empire. CNN has had neo-Nazis and white supremacists like David Duke and Richard Spencer, but they're CNN. They're okay. Just like Joe Biden, he's okay. The establishment is okay. American imperialism is okay. However, if you go against it, all of a sudden we want to scrutinize every person you've ever talked to. We want to hold you responsible for every person you've ever been in the same room with. It's a complete double standard, but it shows you who these people are working for. And that's really what it really gets down to. These people are working for imperialism. It's okay to be part of the mainstream, but people outside of the mainstream need to be criticized. At the end of the day, what's going on is that within the lower levels of American capitalism, you have lower level capitalists like Betsy DeVos, who was Donald Trump's Secretary of Education. She's like, her family owns Amway, the like Tupperware multi-level marketing scheme, and she's tied to some military contractors. You got Bernie Marcus, who's the owner of Home Depot. You got the fracking companies, and they are in like a fight with the big corporations and the big monopolies, the Rockefellers, Silicon Valley, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos. The ultra rich are battling the rich. And basically, the job of leftists, in theory, is we're just supposed to be the foot soldiers of the ultra rich in the effort to beat back the rest of the rich. And that's not what it should be. We should be fighting for working people against the rich. We should be against the big corporations and against the monopolies. We should be fighting for working families. And we should be standing arm in arm with the people of the world, like in countries like Iran and Nicaragua that are being hit with US sanctions. We should be in solidarity with the people of the world and bringing working families of this country together against the big corporations and against the monopolies and against their whole imperialist system. That's what our job is. Our job is not just to help Jeff Bezos and the Rockefellers and Silicon Valley, kick around the Trump supporters and get them back into line. Look, they're trying to whitewash American imperialism right now. They are trying to have this woke makeover of U.S. society, right? It's really because of the Soviet Union that people around the world know the truth about the United States. Because, it was the Soviet Union that raised the issue of Jim Crow segregation, that took the picture of Emmett Till's mutilated body and sent it all over the world and said, this is America that says they believe in democracy, but look what they do to African Americans. And it was the support and the international solidarity that the Soviet Union gave to the Black liberation struggle, exposing the crimes of the United States to the world, that really made it an issue that the world couldn't look away from. The Soviet Union, they had William L. Patterson, an African-American communist leader, take a petition to the United Nations called We Charge Genocide, exposing the crimes against African-Americans. And so, the crimes against Black people have just, hung over U.S. society like a curse, and anti-imperialist forces have just exposed it and not let it go. So now, in order to try and clean up the image of American imperialism, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the Ford Foundation, a lot of the big banks are trying to have this woke makeover of U.S. society and say, that's not what we are anymore. That's all in the past. Look how woke we are. And they're trying to whitewash the image of U.S. imperialism in order to then have the United States be able to say, oh, we can invade other countries because they're violating human rights. They're trying to clean up the image of the United States to serve their international agenda of imperialism, right? They want to attack countries alleging that they persecute gay people. They want to attack countries alleging that they mistreat women or they're mistreating a certain ethnic group or something like that. And in order to do that and not look like complete hypocrites, they have to clean up the image of the United States. Our job is not to help them do that. Our job is to stand with the people of the world against their wars. Our job is to expose that the prison industrial complex is still going on, that there are still children all over this country that are going to bed hungry because of their policies, that opioids and drugs are destroying people's lives, and the CIA has a long history of being in bed with the narco gangs and drug traffickers. Our job isn't to help them clean up their image so they can better carry out imperialism. That is not our job. We are to be opposing their system, and that there's a fight in the ruling class, and it's not our job to help the imperialists. It's just not our job.
Yeah, and it drives me crazy because you see, and you explained it perfectly when they use wokeism and when they use progressive language in order to justify imperialism. When they say, "Oh my," and Marianne Williamson was guilty of this, and the same progressives they're literally saying that she should be the next commander in chief. You guys are out of your goddamn minds. She was repeating, "Oh, we got to stay in Afghanistan because of the Afghan women." And you see they repeat the lie about the Uyghur genocide in China as well. They repeat the bullshit that go on in DPRK. They justify U.S. sanctions in the DPRK, repeating CIA talking points against the state, thinking they're being progressive because their mindset is, "Oh my God, we want to help the people of the DPRK by starving them to death." How does that make sense?
Right.
And I want to play this video because I think this is a good transition and get a reaction because these people advocate for sanctions. I've seen these same people get mad at us when we have critical support for Nicolas Maduro, and they're like, "What about how you treat Venezuela?" It's not like you're repeating U.S. state talking points. We're complicit with starving that state, but they don't care. They don't care because they don't see sanctions even as an act of war. I love your explanation earlier. You had so many things it will take me forever to break down, but your explanation how being anti-imperialist is not being just anti-war. You got Hassan fans and Voss fans right now explaining how sanctions is not war. They legitimately believe that. And we have a show we do, International Leftist Coalition, and we did a whole 2-hour live stream explaining how economic warfare is arguably worse than on-the-ground war in terms of human cost, at least in my lifetime. Right? So let's get, I can't wait to get your reaction to this because this is a guy who, once again, I'm not hating. He gets like more views in maybe 10 minutes of his live stream than we do maybe in a month, right? So this is why it's important to call it out because he got way more influence than me. I'm not hating. It is what it is. But I'm horrified by that fact. Because look, check this out. Let me fix my audio here, and I want to give you guys a reaction to this video.
Actual geopolitical threats will change anything. I feel like the only thing we can do at this point is starve Russia out. We're wealthier than them by metrics. I mean, ally with all the countries in their periphery, sanction, sanction their leaders, cripple their economy, wait for them to bleed out, and then when they're ready to play ball, they can be a nice, compliant country.
I mean, but there's a lot of civilians that get hurt in that scenario.
In eastern Ukraine as well, yeah. But if they're going to be
like
like
sanctions
that,
on Russia, is what I'm saying, that would hurt a lot of civilians.
Not as much as their missile strikes would hurt eastern Ukrainians, right? Again, keep in mind, this isn't out of spite. If actual geopolitical threat.
So that was I love Kyle's reaction there, because even he know how insane that is. That was the exact moment that Kyle realized he'd been platformed and he'd been friends with a neocon. So I'm asking social democrats everywhere, what define small disagreement? Because once again, you have these harsh litmus tests over working class people. I'm working and marching with people for healthcare and for increased wages, but you guys have insane litmus tests for that. But advocating for the economic genocide of millions of people, Kyle was saying, "Oh, that's just a small disagreement." Someone define that to me. But what's your overall reaction to that video, Caleb?
Well, there are so many distortions in what he said. I mean, he's talking like he cares about the lives of people in East Ukraine. At the UN, the USA pointed out that like 14,000 people have died since the beginning of the conflict in East Ukraine. And then the Russians got up and they said, that's true. And the overwhelming majority of those people who have died in Eastern Ukraine have been civilians who were killed by the Ukrainian government. The USA is arming the Ukrainian government, and they are going and they are shelling civilian areas, and they are killing their own people, and they are slaughtering civilians. They've got drones. They're buying drones from Turkey, and they're using them to carry out airstrikes against their own people in Eastern Ukraine. So if he really cares about the lives of people in Eastern Ukraine, shouldn't he be calling for the United States to stop arming a government full of people that are destroying World War II memorials and having parades to honor, people who marched in solidarity with Hitler and Nazi collaborators like Stepan Bandera? It's pretty outrageous. We know who's killing people in Eastern Ukraine. It's not Russia, right? It's Russia. Russia that is trying to at least offer some aid to the people in the eastern regions who have broken away. In 2014, Barack Obama and the U.S. government basically toppled the elected Ukrainian government and the elected leader Yanukovych, and then they installed this fanatical anti-Russian government based in the western regions. And a lot of the people in the eastern parts of the country don't want to go along with that. And so in response to them, forming these independent republics, Donbass, Novorossiya, in response to that, the government in Kiev that's armed by the United States has been killing them. So, he doesn't know what he's talking about. And then, when he talks about sanctions, he says starve them out. What would the United States do if countries were actively blocking us from importing medicine or importing food?
And they have good reason to.
Yeah. If some other country did that to us, at some point, if people stop allowing you to import food and stop allowing you to have medicine coming into your country, at some point you're going to start shooting. And so it's like sanctions are an act of war. It keeps people from getting medicine. It keeps people from getting food. It hurts people's lives, number one. But number two, it's the road to a real war, because after a while, you're going to have to retaliate. When I was in Iran, I met a guy who was an airline pilot. And he was an airline pilot, but he was stuck serving tea to people like me and serving tea because in Iran, they can't get airplane parts because of the U.S. sanctions. And so they don't have any new airplanes. And he's ready to become an airline pilot. His life's goal has been to be an airline pilot, but he can't fly a plane because of the sanctions. When I was at the World Festival of Youth and Students in 2013, I met a Cuban man who's in a wheelchair. He's in a wheelchair. He can't walk. And the drug that would enable him to get over his genetic problem, that his genetic disease that prevents him from from walking is on the sanctions list, and the blockade of Cuba prevents him from walking. Sanctions, they sound like this nice euphemism, like, oh, we're going to put sanctions on them. You know, it's like almost a joke, but this is people's lives. People can't get the medicine they need to live. People can't eat. People can't get jobs. It demolishes countries' economies. It kills people. The sanctions on Venezuela have cost tens of thousands of lives. And then they want to turn around and say, oh, see, Venezuela, they're not feeding their people. It's all because of socialism. Well, no, it's because of the active economic warfare of the United States.
And I was legitimately curious about their logic here. And when I see like Volkswagen people argue for sanctions, like, oh no, we're gonna have targeted sanctions that's gonna hurt Putin, but somehow not hurt the workers.
That's never how it works. That's never.
I would love to see one historical example of this happening. So think about this: how are you gonna have sanctions that somehow you targeting wealth, but it skips the workers? It skips the impact skips the workers, and somehow it's gonna hurt a guy who is worth billions of dollars. Isn't Putin one of the richest men in the world? Period. Something like that. The logic doesn't make sense on paper. And you guys know that the Biden administration, they did an investigation into sanctions because they were trying to justify it. We did this report on the International Leftist Coalition, and they literally admit that the goal of sanctions, once again, the U.S. government admits this, is to hurt the people so the people will revolt against the leader. They don't even lie about it when they talk about it, when they be doing these reports. And then during that report, the Biden administration said they concluded that sanctions are an effective tool to fight authoritarian leaders. So what are they saying there? They're saying that the U.S. foreign policy of starving poor people all over the world because they voted for leaders that they disagree with is something that they support.